So, you want to be a UFC fighter. You want to make money. You want to be the best in the world, right? Well, the only issue is that you have about thousands of other people who have the exact same goal as you. Now, you need a way to erase them and stand out between the crowd. You want to be unique. You don't want to look at the same as everyone else. You know what I mean? Because if the UFC sees a bunch of the guys who are the same, they're going to pick the unique ones out because they're in it to make a business and they want to make money, and you're going to be the one making the money. So the first thing that you want to do is find an MMA gym. Find one local. Like, the closer it is to you, the better. Look it up. Like, you can do a quick Google search to see if they're good or not, see the reviews, talk to coaches and make sure like you're getting the training and the skills that you need to become a high level fighter and a UFC fighter. What you want to do is ask them like, hey, do you have any guys who are UFC fighters now? Or you can check on their website, see what success levels they've already brought other guys up to, and that's a good way you can compare what they can bring you up to. Once you enter the gym, meet a coach. You need a coach. Usually you get a good group of coaches around you, and once you get to know your coach a lot better, which shouldn't take too much time, you get most of all training, but you also get something very useful, and that's connections. Your coach if he's a good coach, he's also had other fighters that he's trained, and that's meaningful because if he's trained other fighters, that means he knows managers, he knows fight promotions, he's been to fight promotions with his fighters, and he has connections. And connections means more fights for you, and more fights mean being noticed by the UFC. So let's be all honest here, okay? The UFC is not where your first 6 to 8 fights will be at. Some people are in the gym every day right now. They're pretty young and they're training to be a UFC fighter. Maybe you're older and you're training. Your first fights are not going to be in the UFC. You have to realize that in the beginning, you're going to need to get those early wins in other promotions to be recognized before you can get into the UFC. Because remember, there's a lot of people applying, and you yourself need to be different than them to stand out. So you're going to need to join a local promotion, as I think I said before. So just like you need to join a local gym, you need to join a local promotion. And there's a lot of them around. Maybe you kind of live in the country a little bit, or you're in a small town and your gym doesn't have one. If you're even remotely nearby a city, you can just drive a few hours that way and get on a fight card. And you'll be able to do this with your coaches because they're going to have other fighters on the card. And if you make friends with other fighters, you're going to be able to get in promotions. It won't be hard to get in competition. And with competitions comes promotions, and they're just going to be local. They're not going to be the UFC. Maybe you don't even get paid, but that's wins on your record, okay? So a good record is more impressive than more fights, which, like, people need to know this, okay? If I have 40 fights, but I've won half and lost half, the UFC is going to look at that and be like, we're a company that claims to have the best fighters, the highest level of mixed martial arts. We don't want a guy who only wins half his fights. That doesn't look good for us as a company. You know what I mean? Because they want to be like the NHL, the highest football player, the best football players. They want to be like the NBA, the best basketball players. So if you have 10-0, 10-0 is a lot better than having 13-8. And you're like, well, of course. But 13-8 is a lot more fights. And you have a lot more experience. But the UFC is going to look at it and they're going to be like, we'd way rather have the guy who has no losses or has only a few losses because it looks better for us. So a way to get that is picking opponents, okay? You're going to be able to pick opponents. Maybe your first few fights you're not going to be able to. But once you get a few wins and a little bit of an experience, you're going to have options to pick opponents. Now, when you get options to pick an opponent, you need to look at them, okay? We're looking at this right now. Who are you choosing? Are you choosing the young guy? Now, if you choose that young guy whose record is 20-5, it's going to look better with your as a fighter. And when someone looks at your record, they're going to be like, wow, he fought a guy who was 20-5. Alright, and he won or he lost, it's pretty good. If you lost, it's not good. Now, or you could verse a different guy who you have a better chance with and almost guarantee you win. Now here's where that, as we talked about before, it's important to have a good record. So once you're in the UFC, that's when you want to take on bigger challenges, not too big, but bigger challenges so you look good. Because that's when the UFC is really paying attention to who you're fighting. They're really watching you. But when you're not in the UFC doesn't care. The UFC looks at your record and they make sure that your opponents are also semi-pro, but they don't dive deep into seeing who your opponents are and stuff. So choose the easiest fight. I know that might not sit well with everybody, but if we all choose the easiest fight for us, now maybe the guy who is 20-5 and he's a good grappler, but not a good striker, and you're a really good striker and have good takedown defense, well then yeah, you're gonna go that route because that's an easier fight and it also looks better. So choose the easier fight, which means you have a better record, and a better record's gonna get you noticed by the UFC a lot easier. So now we come to that there's 3 ways to enter the UFC, and one of them is joining through the Ultimate Fighter. They're having seasons of the Ultimate Fighter all the time now. If they just happen to be in your weight class and you have a few wins under your belt, you can get in. Now let's say you aren't lucky enough, because let's be honest, the majority of us aren't going to have a 10-0 record. A lot of us are going to have losses. The Ultimate Fighter is a perfect route for you. You know why? Because they take a lot of guys who don't have don't have perfect records, but they have potential. And if you're showing potential, you can get on the Ultimate Fighter pretty good. The season that's going on right now, we have fighters that are with 2-4 records on the Ultimate Fighter that's going on right now. So why couldn't you be one of those people? Or you could join getting noticed, which is a little bit harder. I'd say a way to kind of compare this to would be Dana White looking for a fight series, or other UFC representatives or higher gym people who have good connections with the UFC. If they see you that you're a super good fighter and you're really talented, you can get into the UFC through them. But this is also, keep in mind, this is with one area that I wouldn't bank on. It's most likely, I would say, definitely the hardest way to get into the UFC. But there are people who have gotten this way, and that mostly comes with time and, to be honest, being lucky. Being in the right place at the right time is mostly how you get into that way. Now, other way is know a UFC fighter or know somebody. So you got like Artem Lobov, who's in the UFC right now. He is Conor McGregor's good friend. Artem Lobov, we can all agree, does not have a record that you usually see in the UFC. It's not too pretty. But he knows Conor McGregor. He's good. He's a training partner of Conor McGregor, good friends, and he's in the UFC now. So if you know a fighter, knowing a fighter is great, because now you just put yourself, now he can put in words for you, or he can talk about you, and you can get in the fight. That's why I really like Team Alpha Male, because it's full of UFC fighters who are really popular, and you know why they're really popular? Because their teammates help them. If you have a UFC fighter who's your friend, he's gonna help you get in the same position as him because he cares about you, and that's why Team Alpha Male Gym is really cool, because they help each other. And knowing a UFC fighter can make everything a lot easier. Or there's one lot more play. You can literally just apply at their website. So yeah, as simple as that. Apply at their website. Now, the only issue with this is that thousands of people apply this way, so it will be very difficult to stand out. You've got thousands of people applying each year. What are the chances you're going to be picked out through 1,000? So, what's the best option for you? You know what I mean? There are people who get into the website, but there aren't 1,000 fighters in the UFC. There may be, but like, a lot of those guys are gonna stay, and only so many fighters get cut every year, and every fighter that gets cut, UFC tries to replace or get more, right? So how are you gonna be one of those people that gets replaced? How are you gonna look better than that last guy? And how are you gonna look better than your competition, who's also gonna be there? And you guys got to think about these things. You guys got to think about What kind of personality do I want to see? Do I want to be like Demetrius Johnson, who doesn't trash talk his fighters and doesn't really say much about anything and says, oh, I might lose this fight? Do I want to go that path? Maybe not. The UFC has shown us that they don't like that. They want people like Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Kevin Lee, people who are confident. You don't have to trash talk, but you need to be confident. And if you're not confident, people aren't attracted to that, because UFC is an entertainment sport. They want to entertain people, and people are entertained by two guys who are going to fight each other. They both believe they're going to win. They're both confident. They're a little bit have a grudge towards each other. That's what gets people interested when you hear stuff like that. So, how long is this going to take, people? I'm going to say 2 to 8 years, and that really depends on the gym that you're at, your record, and most of all, your work ethic. Now, it's going to be sooner for people who have connections, depending what gym you join, if you know any UFC fighters, if you get lucky, or if you're just naturally a good fighter and you're winning all your fights. It might take up to 8 years for people who maybe they're not winning all their fights, and now they have to get more wins under their belt to get noticed. So it's a bumpy road to get where you want to. Some people are going to get there quick, and it's going to take some other people a long time, and that really just all depends on how hard are you going to work for it and the strategy you use to get there quicker. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. This type of video, the style, is completely new to me. I just had the idea to do it. I don't know if you guys enjoy it. If you did, let me know in the comments or leave a like. If you guys didn't, let me know that too. I thought this might have been cool. This was kind of a test video. Next video, if you guys like it, I'll make sure to add more pictures. I didn't realize how long this video would actually be. But I hope it helped you guys get a good understanding of the ways you can join the UFC. I'm sure a lot of you guys knew about this. I know a lot of the fans of this channel know a lot about the UFC. But if you didn't, I hope you guys learned something new. Either way, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.